Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the snare wire on your drum kit snare drum, as well as how to replace the front snare head and tune front and rear snare heads. So I'm going to start by disassembly. So first, I'm going to remove the snare wire. As you can see, I'm replacing mine because there's a couple snares that I've broken off here. So you're going to have 2 lugs on this side, 2 lugs on this side. Take your drum key, loosen those up. On my particular snare, the snare wire plastics go between a piece and the edge here, and when it loops through the second time, it comes through this other piece and it's all clamped together. So just make sure you keep those in the right order. Just gonna hand tighten them for now. To make it easier, you also could release this, but I didn't need to do that. So then come to the other side, loosen these up, and your snare wire should be able to just slide out like that. Now I'm going to reuse these plastics. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I don't have extras, so I'll just reuse those. I'm going to set all this aside, and next I'm going to loosen up both the drum heads. I'm going to do this in a star pattern so it loosens it up evenly on each side. Okay, then once I have that all loosened up, I'm going to tighten all these down hand tight, just as tight as I can go with my fingers. You won't be able to get it very tight, but it'll be relatively even on all of the lugs. You can still see some wrinkles in the head because this is a used head. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now these are all loose, I can take them all out because we'll need to replace the head. I'm not replacing the head on my drum just because this head has a little bit more life in it. But it'll just be a good example for when you need to replace your head. Sometimes there might be a washer that comes on the lug. Just make sure you keep that in place. Okay, now that all the lugs are out, you can take the rim or whatever you call it off, and then your drum head off. So this definitely has some wear on it. The coating is starting to wear off here. It's more smooth, so it won't sound as good with brushes, but it should be okay. Inspect your edge a little bit, just make sure it's smooth. You can feel some bumps in it, but I'm not too worried about that. Now's a chance to take your new head and place it back on. So just gonna make sure there's no dust on here. And then if you have a new head, you might want to crack it and crack the glue on it. This one's already broken in. You can just line up the logo how you want. Then place your rim on here, line it up with the lugs, and just like before, we're gonna go in a star pattern and hand tighten the lugs. Make sure you get all your washers on there. Also make sure to do this in a star pattern. So I'm just tightening both sides at the same time. So once it's as tight as you can, let's go and double check the back side that it's all hand tight. Looks good. So now you're ready to start tuning. The way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna start on the bottom head. So the way I tune is I tune the bottom head pretty tight, then I just tune the top head however I want it. But no matter what, I'm gonna keep the bottom head tight. So after I've hand tightened all these lugs as tight as I can go with my hands, that means they're pretty much even. So next I'm gonna take 2 drum keys. It doesn't have to be 2, but it's a lot easier, and it's easier to make it more even that way. So you're gonna start with 2 of them and crank them the exact same amount, right across from each other, right the opposite lug. I'm gonna start out with 1 turn. I'll go 1 lug over, 1 whole turn. This way I'm keeping it perfectly even. Another whole turn. then one more. So I made it all the way around. And as you can tell, it's already firm. It's not tight enough, so I'm gonna go a whole nother turn. And you kind of just go till it feels right, or to where you think you should stop. Just make sure not to over tighten it. I'm gonna stop there for now. Now we're gonna go to the top head. So the exact same thing with the top head, except you just tune it where you want it. You don't have to crank it up tight. You can keep it loose or go tight. So as soon as these are all finger tight, you're gonna do the same thing. 2 keys. You're gonna start with 1 turn. You probably will hear some cracking. That's normal. I'm gonna call that good for now. You may also have to adjust the head over time because it will stretch out, especially if you have a new head. So next, what I'm gonna do is replace the snare wires. Okay, so we've got our head mostly tightened on the bottom, and I've got my new snare wire here, and it's got slightly more wires than the old one, so I should get a more snareful sound. So I'm gonna take my plastics and loop them through here. The way I'm gonna start is I'm gonna go on this side first. This is the non-tensioner side versus that side. And go through this hole. Also make sure your snare wire is facing down. So there's the side where it's soldered. The wires are on that side, and then the other side is where the brackets are. You wanna place the snare wire side down. You have to see how yours was arranged. Okay, let's just say I'm gonna start there and I'll see how it evens out when I'm done. You wanna tighten these gradually on each side so you don't crank down one side all at once, but go back and forth. Okay, then come over to the tensioner side, loop the plastic through. And feed it through this slot. Then you might even wanna unscrew this adjuster screw because I had it maxed out. So I'm gonna unscrew that quite a bit. So it gives me a lot more adjustment. You wanna tighten it up while you're keeping tension on the plastic. Okay, so just from the feel of that, I'm gonna loosen up this adjuster a little bit more. Okay, so as you can see, it's uneven. It's very close on this side and pretty far away on this side. So I'm just gonna shift it over just a little bit. So I'll release this, and I'm gonna come over here on this side, loosen these up just a little bit, and try to pull just a little bit through. You kind of just have to adjust this and see how it tightens up and then adjust it. So it'll take a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, this side's a little bit close, that side's a little bit far. But if you think about when I start tensioning it, because it's gonna stretch out over time, it will slowly move over that way. So I'm just gonna leave it like that, and I'll leave me room for plenty of adjustment. So now that you've replaced your snare wire and tuned your snare, you can finalize it if you want to, play it, and then adjust whichever head you want the same way that I just showed you, but you should be good to go. Thanks for watching and enjoy your jump set.